Welcome to Colorado Soul Stories, showcasing changemakers and creatives, past and present, who have helped to make Colorado not just a pretty place to behold, but a soulful place to be. I'm your host, Mama Jill, longtime Colorado resident, former teacher, and freelance journalist. Let's get started with our next episode.
We were each other's favorites. We would always say, what if all that ever hurt just needed kerosene and everything looks beautiful and nothing's clean.
Whenever somebody comes to my door, I'll be like, wow, this could be one of those moments, Just that moment or mood that person is in, and just subtle little changes in their eyes or mouth or expression makes such a big difference. So I'm really learning that. It's the littlest squint or change of your lips makes a huge difference in how the image feels. And tintypes last like 500 years, so it's almost like an heirloom. They last forever.
Tim Brown started taking and developing his own photos as a teenager. In 1982, at just 21 years old, he accepted his first photography job and drove across the country from the East Coast to Salida, Colorado, to capture rafters navigating the rapids of the Arkansas River. Tim quickly fell in love with Salida and never left. Over the years, his work has evolved from outdoor commercial photography to the timeless craft of tintype photography. Today, Tim is nationally recognized for his hauntingly beautiful portraits that draw people from all over the country to his Salida studio. In this episode, I sit down with Tim to talk about his artistry, his decades in Salida, the changes he's witnessed, the traditions that have faded, and what still makes this town such a special place to call home. Hi there. We are at Chavano Street Studios in Salida with Tim Brown, who is a very well-known tintype photographer. Hello, Tim.
Hi.
Welcome.
Great to be here.
I'm
Thanks.
so glad you're here. Tim is actually my neighbor now. He just moved into an older house down the street.
It's great. I love the neighborhood.
Are you liking it?
It's good to be back in the old house, too.
In an old house, yeah. They've got good bones, good energy. Tim came out here for a job to photograph the rafters.
Yeah, exactly. Like the tourist service
Yeah.
where rafters can buy an 8x10 of their run through the
see
rapid.
yourself screaming when
Yeah.
they go over the whitewater.
Pretty neat. And
Yeah.
definitely a dream job for me coming from Rhode Island. just imagining the Rocky Mountains and rafting in whitewater, which I'd never done. A lot of that, too, was Salida. Salida was so different, and it was just neat and this wild, kind of broken down western town. It was like depressed, but it was colorful and the people were amazing, and a wild western town with a railroad and mountains. It was just so neat, and it was such a small little group of people here. You kind of knew everyone, and of course I was kind of part of the artsy outdoor people. More and more people are driving here just for what I do, which I really appreciate. At first, it was mostly locals. When people knew me in a very unique, different thing, tintypes are really rare. Not many people do it anyway.
Well, in the groups of people that I know, it is definitely a thing that we all want to have done, is to get your tintype done with
I
Tim.
hope so. There's not many photographers in the world that do this, especially commercially. So, and it's also kind of a trendy thing now. Not everybody knows about it, but a lot of people in the know are like, yeah, tintypes, they're cool.
Okay.
Not many people do it. When people search tintypes, I come up. I'm like one of the top people out of search without me even doing anything.
How did you get into that form?
This guy named Quinn Jacobson, he was one of the original. There was about 3 or 4 people doing tintypes about 25 years ago, and that was it in the world. The art almost died, and these people got the old books and learned how to do it. And Quinn was living in Europe and teaching there, and he moved to Denver. And I started to see his work on Facebook. When I signed up for the workshop, and I was there about 20 minutes, and we sat and he talked about his philosophy and what he does, and I was like, this is so me, everything he said. And then we went down in this basement and spent 2 days, and I left there like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and I want to do this.
So another kind of serendipitous thing is the house that you bought was previously owned by another Salida photographer. Is that right?
Absolutely. Dan Roan was his name, and he came here and retired. I knew him as a friend, but I didn't know his story. But He was the head of photography at some university somewhere out
Okay.
here. He did old school printing techniques, like from the
Right.
1800s. Beautiful work, really difficult. And he was one of these, again, he was been a photographer his whole life. And so he did these prints that were just pretty magical and pretty neat. And I always just really looked up to him. He passed away, and I was like, oh, I kind of heard about that. And a friend of mine who's a lawyer was hired to be the executive of the estate. And the guy's house, this house over here I live in, was full of old cameras and prints and darkroom stuff. And he hired me to go over there to value it. You know, like, should we throw this out or should we sell it? What is this worth? So they hired me, and I spent a few days going through a ton of stuff. He did have a neat glass cabinet with 2 glass doors, and it was an antique. And they'd asked me, is there anything here you want? I was like, I would love this neat, beautiful old antique cabinet, because I put all my vintage lenses in it in my studio, so it looked really cool, all these old brass lenses from Europe. And so it was wonderful in the sense that I could just move right into the house.
I love that story because it just seems so meant to be.
And exactly. And the house was this Dan Roan's house.
Right.
You know, there's still like an enlarger in the basement. And I just love the vibe that it's his house.
I mean.
And he would probably be stoked that I was in there. I love this neighborhood. And there was 2 things I wanted. One was an old brick house, and one was a quiet neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, a quiet old neighborhood. And it was incredibly serendipitous because this neighborhood reminds me of old Salida. You wake up, it's quiet. Mm-hmm. There's somebody hanging their sheets on the clothesline across the street, and it's just, there's some deer walking around. It's it's sunny, you know. It's wonderful old Salida to me, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, the street's not busy. You know, cars don't come cruising through here.
Do you go to Fairpark much anymore?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a Commodore. I kind of figured that the longer I live here, the longer I've lived here than most people. You know what I mean? So I kind of thought, well, maybe when I'm 85, they'll make me Commodore, because he's been here the longest. So we'll give him the Commodore-ships. But when I was asked a few years back, I was surprised it was that early, but I was also like, yes. I was very excited. So I was very grateful that Lindsay asked me, and it's been a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to be.
An honor.
Great to be. Yeah, great to be part. And I did really realize that I had to look inside, like, why did they choose me? But you know, they had their reasons, and I was like, well, I have lived here a long time, and I've contributed a lot, and I've always been involved in FibArc, mostly as a photographer. I'll always be documenting it to help promote it.
You're an archiver.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I was making parallels with your profession and what I've gotten to know as your life philosophy about caring about the legacy of the town, not forgetting everything that has come before, which can happen with growth. You photograph a lot of people that live here.
Absolutely. I mean, they were my models, you know.
How would you say that's a reflection of Salida, all those different people?
The thing about Salida is people would come here and just fall in love with it, like I did, probably like you, like most people, you know. But the problem was, for a long time, there just wasn't work to keep people here, you know. And then a lot of artists, because it attracts that, you know, the mountain lifestyle attracts that. But also, you could afford to be an artist here. You know? And it was kind of neat because I probably started around early 90s when a bunch of us started renting downtown buildings for nothing, because we would fix them up ourselves, and all of a sudden we have a gallery, and that's what started Art Walk.
Okay.
All of a sudden there's a handful of artists that are really talented, and they have these little shacky spaces downtown. That's and it was very unique and different. And Art Walk for a while was huge because it was so cool and so this funky little town that's sort of broken down. And here's all these really amazing artists, and they do this fun Art Walk thing. It was really new. And now it's like, well, which Art Walk do you want to go to? You want to go to Breckenridge or Vail or Salida? Where do you want to go? I do think it's great now that just because there's more work here, but also there's remote work and all that.
That's expanded the breadth of people, types of people that could come here. Not all just service workers or... Yeah,
because that's all it was back then. During the 80s especially, houses were selling for nothing. They were barely selling. And like a lot of my friends Didn't even pay rent. You could just like caretake a house,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
So you could live here and be, you know, a dirtbag artist or a dirtbag outdoorsy person.
Right.
You could be a raft guide and teach skiing and not make much money, but you could live in Salida, you know. And I think in some ways that's one thing that's a little sad. And I even think about my kids, like, wow, they can't afford to come here and buy a house now, you know, unless you're really creative. That was such a part of the character of this town, was a combination of happy locals that have been here forever, just sort of happy, smiley.
The living was kind of easy.
Yep.
Maybe.
Simple,
yeah.
very simple.
Simple, yeah. I wish we could catch that so we can preserve that piece that attracted people to an area to begin with. It's not only a cool mountain town, but it's got some cool art too, made by the people that live here.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, Salida sells itself as an art town because,
Right.
you know, it was one of the first creative district, you know, Sackett Street. Even when I first moved here, there was some older people. I remember these two older women, older Italian women.
Okay.
They still spoke Italian too, but they wouldn't go down south of F
Oh.
because forever that was like the red light district.
Oh.
You know, that's like back in the whatever, you know, forever up until the 50s or so, there was prostitution and all the bars and fights and, you know, miners and railroad and just, that was the
That
dark.
was the seedy part of
It
town.
was. And even when I came here, it was still like all those homes on Sackett were just sort of shacky homes. And, you know, now they're like riverfront property for $1 million
Right.
bucks. But back then it was like Sackett Street, you lived there, you know.
The way things take a 360, man. I can't believe it.
But how wonderful cleaning up the river. What a great thing to do.
Yes.
That was definitely probably one of the first levels of people coming here, you know, besides the art. I think that's the thing about with growth is you can still find your special little old school Salida moments. It gets slow off season like now or January, February, and it's just always, I love the off season. I love winters especially. Like every now and then there'll be just a night, maybe if it's snowing downtown, and it's just like, it just feels like 100 years
The
ago.
old times, yeah.
You know,
It seems
special.
like I'll walk into the Vic, even though it's like been redone, it's a little more expensive than it used to be, maybe. But when I walk in there, I feel like there's a real local vibe still. That feels good to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
People are going there. One thing that we all loved about the Vic forever was it would be a mix of every type of people there. You know, it'd be a fun, crowded night, and there'd be the ranchers and the dirtbag artist and the outdoorsy ski bum.
Yeah.
And all ages, and everyone just got along. It was like a Star Wars bar. You know,
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
that's a
so
good
many
description.
different characters, you know.
You had that really cool art show.
Broken.
Broken. Do you have anything else like that planned? Any more exhibitions?
I'm not going to say what it's about because it's going to be pretty amazing, but we just put it on the shelf for now.
Okay.
But it's along the same lines of Broken.
Okay.
More, you know, human experience, sort of deep, meaningful art with words. You know,
I loved that you
not really
paired-
art to sell, just sort of more of
Putting
a
it out
statement and a story,
Yeah.
and also sharing my own experiences with people.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I think that's the evolution of an artist, is to eventually do exactly who you are and how you feel, and just to express yourself with your craft. After Broken, which was a big deal, it was a very vulnerable thing for me. It was about heartache and breakup and divorce and all that. I definitely want to do way more of that. Ultimately, I want to do nothing but that, and in the future is nothing but just more meaningful artwork. You know, we're all in the human experience. There's a million subjects that we can touch on that are deep and heavy.
I had this thing on my wall for a while. It was a woman with a paintbrush kind of assessing what she'd just painted, but it was talking about why she loved art and painting is because it just started over every day with a blank canvas, and who knows what it's going to turn into, you know, and what a great thing to be able to do, you know.
Absolutely.
Get to do that kind of every day.
Art's important. It's important for everyone. I think for our community, for the world, it keeps us sort of sane and also communicating and expressing ourselves.
Learning.
And, being vulnerable and growing, healing, all that, you know.
It's a very soulful thing.
It is. People express through art, maybe because they can't express through their own words, but it's a great vehicle to be able to share and show and express yourself too, you know.
Absolutely. How has Salida influenced your art? Are you able to put that into words?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the first 20 years, I was all about the outdoors.
Outdoors,
So
yeah.
to say more of what I do now is I always love photographing people, even as an adventure person.
Okay.
If I'd find some amazing landscape, I felt I wanted the person in it rather than just this beautiful landscape. I'd be, that's great, but I want a human in there, whether they're sitting and watching or hiking or maybe mountain biking or whatever. I've always been way into people and wanting to photograph. And I love portraiture now, especially doing tintypes, because it's very intimate. It's handmade. It takes time to make a tintype. I've done 1 million portraits, and I just understand humans through my years as a photographer. And tintypes, again, just takes it to the next level. When people first come to the door, the first thing I'll do is look at them. I'll be like, this is going to be amazing, or, oh, this is going to be really hard. Because I have to really look inside myself. Because we all get a little self-conscious. Well, here's this camera that's huge, and this old lens that's huge, and it was made 170 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm pulling, it's a longer exposure too. It's not just a snap. It's like 2 or 4 seconds, so you have to be still. And it's really just the biggest photo mirror ever. You know, people just like, oh my goodness, you know, I have to look good and I have to be still for 4 seconds. It really forces me to have to be really calm from the second they come. I've been a photographer my whole life too, and doing portrait, even color portraiture. However I act is going to affect them. And people want to feel safe and feel they can be comfortable and be themselves. Yeah. It's really exciting because, again, whenever somebody comes to my door, I'll be like, wow, this could be one of those moments, you know. Just that moment or mood that person is in, you know, and just subtle changes in their eyes or mouth or expression makes such a big difference. So I'm really learning that. It's the littlest squint or change of your lips makes a huge difference in how the image feels. And tintypes last like 500 years, so it's almost like an heirloom. They last forever. So I love the fact that I'm creating these photos, not an old-time photo, but even if it's a modern, beautiful portrait of yourself or your child, it's like, here's this thing that's going to be around for 500 years. I collect tintypes from the 1860s, and they look like the day they were taken.
Something so old that's so solid.
You could argue it's definitely superior to film, like modern film, because it doesn't have grain. Photographing people whose light is going through and being shaped by the same glass that was made by hand in 1860, and all the people back then whose image went through the same glass too, and your image, your light's going through the same glass and being shaped by these lenses that were very basic formula, but still made by somebody polishing in England
handmade.
In 1860.
Yeah. Wow.
And so there's some juju that happens. I really want to end my career this last, 20 years of just everything I've learned, putting that to meaningful artwork. And that's what my friend Quinn I mentioned, who taught me the tintypes, says. That's why in the first 20 minutes I was blown away, because he was like, I don't really photograph anything if it doesn't have meaning. I feel like I'm at the beginning of photography again, and I'm learning so much. It's really exciting, and there's other directions I want to go in, and I can evolve from tintypes into other historic processes. I'm kind of like this beginner, that excitement of starting something new that's creative and fun, but also I have 40 years of experience.
Wanting to do something that maybe you never know where the end of it might be. There's so many possibilities.
Exactly.
I love that. Wow, I'm so glad I've gotten to know you, Tim, and I can't wait to see how this continues to evolve, your
Me too.
creative processes. He's building a studio down the street, so you might have to have a little open house when you...
Absolutely.
What do you love most about your work? Can you pinpoint one thing?
Well, I mean, for whatever reason, I've always loved photography.
Yeah.
It's been a very personal, deep journey for me, I just felt like Salida was just such an amazing part of the world that, I chose to live here and take a huge pay cut. And so I've always looked at it like, hey, okay, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm living of a millionaire. I live in this most amazing place with wonderful people, the best weather ever, mountains and snow and rivers, and not to mention what's within 6 or 7 hours of driving. We've got the Canyonlands and north and south, and anywhere you go, it's just so much to explore. And
the West.
And it really, the West also just attracts interesting people. People like you and I who are like, I'm not going to sell for Boston. I'm not going to want to be a salesman in Boston. I want more. And so we're a bunch of, individual, independent, creative, powerful people. So our whole
Place
community
matters.
is that.
Okay.
We're surrounded, so it's almost like supportive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I know, like out east is, it's not quite the artsy thing going on there, and it's just hard to get support to be a different type of person or to make a living.
It's
running
not always
rivers.
acceptable to be what might be perceived as a misfit.
Yeah, that was the word I was going to say. Was misfit. We're a bunch of misfits out here. Especially the early days, I really felt that because we were out here just because we loved it, because we're all broke and nobody's making any money. But boy, look at our lives, And I've always just been like, Tim, you've been a photographer your whole life. You've traveled. You live in this great place. You have an amazing community. Like, I'm a freaking millionaire.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Tim Brown. One of my priorities with the podcast is to strive to unearth the lesser-known stories, and as a priority, not repeat information that has been covered on other podcasts. That being said, if you would like to hear more about Tim's initial adventures photographing on the Arkansas River and his exhibition Broken, tune in to an August 2024 episode of the We Are Chafee podcast by Adam Williams. To learn more about the tintype process or to set up a session with Tim, please go to timbrownphotography.com. As always, please subscribe, rate, and review Colorado Soul Stories. It costs nothing, but really helps me continue to run the podcast. See you next time. Mama Jill signing out.
Welcome to Nude Foods Market, where we make plastic-free grocery shopping convenient, easy, joyful, and local. We have everything from produce, snacks, meat, and fresh bread to home care, body care, and ready-made meals. The big difference is that our deeply researched organic and local groceries come pre-packaged in returnable glass jars. You shop just like a regular store. The only difference is that instead of putting all that packaging into landfill when you're done with it, you bring it back to us to be reused hundreds more times. Visit our stores in Denver and Boulder and get $10 off your first shop. Go to nudefoodsmarket.com/COSOL to claim your coupon. We're locally owned, women owned, and working hard to fix our broken food system, so hope you can pop in and check us out soon.